Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here on Westbrook Bay in Margate, and as you can see, I'm pretty much prepared for whatever weather, as the weather has been a little bit unpredictable. Just a few moments ago it was raining really heavily, and looking at some of these clouds, I imagine we're going to get a fair bit more rain. So what I've got here is I've got an umbrella that I've taped to a tripod, and I've chosen a clear umbrella. You want an umbrella which will allow light to reach your painting. And I've also weighed this down with a bag, as umbrellas can pick up the wind and the whole thing could fall over. So the umbrella is going to stop the water from getting directly onto the painting and also onto the palette, because when water gets on the palette, it suddenly becomes very hard to mix the paint. But let's get into this video and let's see how the setup holds up. I'm painting on an acrylic primed panel that I've toned to a neutral grey. I start by placing the horizon line. One thing when placing the horizon line is you want to avoid placing the line completely in the middle of your painting. You either want to paint the horizon a bit higher or a bit lower than the centre, in order to avoid chopping your painting in half and also creating a bit of a boring composition. In this instance, I've chosen to place the horizon line slightly higher up than centre, as I want to pick up some more detail in the waves and the sand in the foreground. I'm now starting to paint in the sky. I start with painting the dark shadows at the bottom of the clouds. I then pick out the light areas higher up in the cloud, which is catching more light from the sun. I also like how there's this area of light underneath the cloud where you can see some clearer sky and some smaller clouds in the distance. Then there's some really soft transitions underneath the clouds where you can see areas that are receiving a lot of rain. I really love the moody and dramatic feel that these clouds have. And it's hard painting here without having images of Turner's paintings in my head of his dramatic seascapes, as Turner spent a fair bit of his life here in this area of England, painting Margate and painting the sea and the sky. I'm now massing in a general value for the sea with a big brush. Notice also how there's a gradation in value from the horizon line where the sea appears a bit darker, and as the sea gets closer to the foreground, it gets lighter in value. To paint the waves, I first start by painting the darker part of the wave, and to do this I make a separate mix on my palette, which is darker but also quite a bit warmer than the colour of the water around it. As the part of the water which faces directly up is going to be more of a reflection of the sky, whereas this part of the wave you'll be able to see a little bit more of the seabed through the wave, which is why it has that slightly warmer colour to it. I then paint the really light parts, the frothy bits of water where the wave is sort of crashing over on itself. And it's good when painting waves to kind of make a map of where you want them to be positioned, because due to the nature of the sea constantly moving, you're never going to paint it exactly from observation. So it's good to kind of look up and choose little bits of the wave you like and try and get some variety within that edge of the wave. And try and make them a slightly more interesting shape, as I don't want them just to be all horizontal or symmetrical to one another. And I'm trying to get a sort of curvy, wavy rhythm to the water in general. I'm also making smaller dark lines to show some of the waves slightly further back in the sea, in order to give the sea that sense of depth and perspective, and making certain that the waves, as they go further back, they're smaller and less detailed, and the waves in the foreground are bigger, in order to give that sense of the scene receding. I'm now massing in the general value and colour of the sand. Once I've put this down as a base, I can then work into this with more detail and subtle changes in colour and tone. And now to finish this painting off, I'm just adding a bit more detail to the foreground, painting in the seaweed and picking out a few pebbles with some white paint.
So here's the finished painting, and notice that there is a little bit of rain that did get onto the painting. However, it's best to leave this to dry in its own time, as if you try and wipe the water off the painting, I'm going to wipe off some of the paint underneath. And here I've taken the painting back to the studio and the water has dried in its own time, and you can't tell that there was any water on the painting. So I hope you found that video interesting and useful. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at George Frederick Thomas, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.